ever heard of a battle so audacious, so risky, that it was given only a 1 in 5,000 chance of success. A battle that, against all odds, completely flipped the script of a major war. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most brilliant and daring military operations in modern history. The Battle of Inchon. In the summer of 1950, the world held its breath. The Korean War had erupted, and the situation was dire for South Korea and its United Nations allies. The North Korean People's Army, or KPA, had launched a surprise invasion, swiftly capturing the capital, Seoul, and pushing the defending forces all the way down to a tiny corner of the peninsula known as the Pusan Perimeter. It felt like the end was near. The defenders were exhausted, outnumbered, and trapped with their backs to the sea. They needed a miracle, and that miracle had a name. General Douglas MacArthur, the celebrated World War II hero, now Commander-in-Chief of the UN forces, looked at the map, not with despair, but with audacious creativity. While everyone else was focused on reinforcing the Pusan perimeter, MacArthur was looking hundreds of miles behind enemy lines. He saw a weak point, a single spot where a decisive blow could sever the KPA's supply lines and trap their entire army. That spot was Inchon. Now, why was this plan so crazy? White uno, in 5,000 odds. Inchon wasn't just any port, it was a tactical nightmare. First, the tides. Inchon has some of the most extreme tidal ranges in the world, rising and falling over 30 feet. This meant landing craft could only approach the shore during a few specific hours. On a few specific days, miss that window, and your ships would be stranded in vast, exposed mudflats, becoming sitting ducks for enemy artillery. Second, the approach. The only way into the harbor was through a long, narrow channel called Flying Fish Channel. It was treacherous, easily mined, and flanked by North Korean-held islands, particularly the fortified Wolmi-do. A single sunken ship could block the entire channel, dooming the invasion force. And third, the city itself. Instead of a gently sloping beach, the landing forces would have to scale massive seawalls, straight up, under fire. It was a defender's dream and an attacker's worst nightmare. Nearly every single one of MacArthur's top military advisors, from the Army, Navy, and Marines, told him the plan was reckless, bordering on suicidal. They urged him to consider a safer, more conventional landing spot further south. But MacArthur was unyielding. He understood the psychology of war. The very reasons everyone said Inchon was impossible were the same reasons the enemy would never expect an attack there. Its defenses were comparatively light, precisely because it was considered an unsuitable landing site. He famously argued, "The very arguments you have made as to the impracticabilities involved will be our greatest assets, because the enemy will not believe we would be so bold." With MacArthur's sheer force of will pushing the plan forward, Operation Chromite was set in motion. The first, critical phase was to neutralize the island fortress of Wolmi-do, which acted as a cork in the bottle of Incheon Harbor. In the pre-dawn darkness of September 15, 1950, U.S. Marines stormed the island. Following intense naval and air bombardment that had pounded the island for days, the Marines hit the shores. The North Korean defenders, stunned by the ferocity of the assault, were quickly overwhelmed. In just a few hours, the cork was pulled. The American flag was raised over Wolmi-do, signaling that the main event could begin. Now, the landing force had to wait. They waited 4 hours as the tide went out, leaving the first wave of Marines on Wolmi-do isolated. Then, as the afternoon tide began to rush back in, the main invasion fleet, a massive armada of over 260 ships carrying 75,000 troops, steamed into Flying Fish Channel. It was a moment of supreme tension. Would they hit mines? Would hidden coastal guns open up on them? Miraculously, the channel was clear. The deception operations and preliminary bombardments had worked. As dusk fell, the main landing began. Marines and landing craft sped towards the city, but instead of beaches, they faced those daunting seawalls. They threw up scaling ladders, clambering over the top and into the heart of a defended city. It was chaotic. Urban combat, from the very first minute. All the while, naval guns fired over their heads, pounding enemy positions deeper in the city. The element of surprise was total. The North Korean command was in disbelief, receiving frantic reports of a massive American landing where they least expected it. The success was immediate and overwhelming. The Marines secured the beachhead, pushed into the city, and by the next day, Inchon was firmly in UN hands. But this was just the beginning. The next objective was to race the 20 miles inland to recapture the capital, Seoul. This proved to be a much tougher fight. The KPA, realizing the catastrophic threat, rushed reinforcements to defend the city. The battle for Seoul was a brutal, street-by-street slugfest that lasted for over a week, but the momentum was with the UN forces. On September 28th, General MacArthur dramatically announced the liberation of Seoul. More importantly, the capture of the Seoul-Inchon area had completely severed the KPA's main supply and communication lines running down the length of the peninsula. The North Korean army, fighting at the Pusan perimeter, was suddenly cut off. Without food, ammunition, or orders, their front collapsed. What followed was a complete rout. UN forces broke out of the Pusan perimeter and raced north, linking up with the forces from Inchon. Tens of thousands of KPA soldiers were trapped and either captured or eliminated. In just 2 weeks, a war that seemed all but lost had been completely reversed. The Inchon Landing is remembered today as a masterstroke of military genius. It was a perfect storm of meticulous planning, incredible bravery, and the unshakable conviction of one commander. It demonstrated the immense power of amphibious warfare and the strategic value of surprise. MacArthur took an impossible gamble, and it paid off spectacularly, changing the entire course of the Korean War. It stands as a timeless lesson that sometimes the boldest, most audacious path is the only path to victory. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into history. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button, subscribe for more epic dailies, and let me know in the comments what other historic battles you'd like to see covered. We'll see you in the next one.